Welcome back to the Boot Tragedies. It's April. That means it's draft season. The draft is April 27th through like the 29th, 3-day draft. And the Saints have a couple picks, man. Didn't have a first-round pick originally. Obviously, we got a first-round pick from that Sean Payton trade. So now we have the 29th pick in the draft. We also have the 40th pick in the draft. That's 11 pick later in round 2. 71st, 115th, 146th, 165th, and 2 7-round picks. Also, the last pick of the draft, Mr. Irrelevant. Now, we're going to talk about some things the Saints can do with these picks. Usually the Saints are aggressive, especially in the first round. They like to move up in the draft. We're at 29 now. Maybe they'll get aggressive and do that again this year. Now, we're coming off a pretty good draft last season. We have Chris Olave, who obviously had a really good rookie campaign, 72 catches, 1,042 yards, 4 touchdowns. Then we had Trevor Penning, who showed promise, but injuries. We rarely got to see him on the field. Only played in 6 games. Didn't start any. Was coming off a bench role like those first 3 or 4 games. Just coming in, 5 to 10 plays, at the most. Then got hurt at the end of the season once again. Then you have Alontae Taylor, who played in 13 games as a rookie. When he first came on the scene, I think he missed like the first 4 or 5 games. He was absolutely amazing, man. Guarding Devontae Adams, guarding Hopkins from the Cardinals, was really, really good. Then he got injured, and then all of a sudden, Paulson Adebo somehow won that job back, and we didn't get to see Alontae as much, throughout the end of the season. So those 3 picks right there, those 2 first-round picks and second-round pick, they were pretty good. Right now, you can almost guarantee it's 2 out of 3. There was 2 out of 3 on those picks. Trevor Penning, I think he'll be a really good player, but the jury's still out on him just because we haven't, got to see much of him. Then we got DeMarco Jackson, linebacker. Didn't get to see him at all last year. And also Jordan Jackson, defensive tackle. We didn't get to see at all last year. So, with 5 picks, the Saints really struck, in the draft last year. Also got Rashid Shaheed out of undrafted free agency. So last year was pretty good. Now, back to this year. I'll go out and start on the positions that I just for certain we probably won't be drafting early with the first-round pick, second-round pick. I could say cornerback, that's probably out the question. With Paulson Adebo, with Alontae Taylor coming on the scene, with Marshawn Lattimore, we signed about 3 defensive backs, also Lonnie Johnson and more in free agency. I can safely say that cornerback, it's not going to be a position of need in the first round. You never know though, but I'm like 99.99% sure cornerback won't be a need. Also, offensive line, the tackle position, I think we're going to be fine at the tackle position. Obviously, you draft Trevor Penning first round last year. Hurst had a pretty solid season. You got Ryan Ramczyk. Don't think we'll go tackle. Guard possibility because Pete, did restructure his contract. This the last year of his deal. Then you got Ruiz, who had a really good year last year. Let's see if he can keep that momentum and have another good season this year. At center, we got McCoy, signed him to a long-term extension. We won't be, drafting a center. Running back, absolutely not. Got Elvin Kamara, you got Jamal Williams. I highly doubt we take a running back in that first round. Quarterback, obviously you got Carr now. You got Jameis Winston as the backup. You got Taysom Hill. 0% chance, in my opinion, that we take a quarterback. Then you look at the positions I think we may take. Like guard is a possibility on offense. Receiver is, I wouldn't say it's a possibility. I say it's a 90% chance we don't take a receiver first round. But you never know. I think tight end, now that's very possible. It's a good tight end class, a very, very deep tight end class. You obviously have Dalton Kincaid from Utah. I think he's the best tight end. I watched a little bit on him. And all these big board, the first 3 tight ends are all ranked, late first, early second type guys. Then you got Michael Mayer from Notre Dame, also a really good guy. And you got Luke Musgrave from Oregon State. All 3 of those guys have potential to be first round picks. We signed Juwan Johnson basically to a 1-year deal. Maybe they'll, draft another guy to go along with him. But tight end is definitely a position I think is a possibility. Would I like to use a first-round pick on the tight end? Probably not. I think we can get some value in the second, third, fourth round, with that if we're going to go tight end position, especially because I think Juwan Johnson's going to be a really good player, but it would not surprise me if you went, tight end in that first round. Now on to the defensive side of the ball. I can go to another note. I already said cornerback, linebackers. It's probably not happening. You got Demario Davis, you got Pete Warner. You could have, attempted to keep Caden Ellis if you really, really wanted to, but obviously you don't want to pay, a high price for a linebacker that's going to be a backup. That basically eliminates a first-round pick at linebacker, because if we wanted to do that, we would just brought Caden Ellis back. So I think we'll take one later in the draft, but first round, absolutely not. Safety, don't think we'll do it. It's possible, though. Retire Matthew, Marcus May. Maybe they want to bring in a young guy, but usually if you draft a first-round pick, you usually want that guy to start and play, so we probably won't do that. That just leaves the defensive line. Now, this is a 75 to 80% chance I think we draft a defensive lineman. Would it be a defensive tackle? Would it be a defensive end? Who knows? Obviously, we lost Shy Tuttle. We lost David Onyemata. We lost Kentavious Street. We lost I almost said Peyton Turner. That's crazy. We lost Marcus Davenport. So we lost a lot of defensive linemen. So this is obviously the main focus for the Saints. Now we went out. We re-signed Tano. We still got Carl Granderson. Then you have Peyton Turner, who knows what he's going to do. Obviously, Cam Jordan, who's still playing at a high level. Went out, signed 2 defensive tackles in free agency. Well, really 1 defensive tackle and 1 kind of a tweener. Kalen Saunders from the Chiefs. I think he's going to be a fill-in starter. Then you have Nathan Shepard from the Jets. He's kind of a tweener, 3-4 defensive tackle, defensive end. Little versatility. The Saints love that, the bigger guys. Even Dennis Allen came out and when he was at the coaches convention, GM convention, whatever the hell they were at, he said that, the Saints philosophy is still drafting big guys, and he swore that it worked. He said it's worked, but that was a bold-faced lie. It has not worked. It has not worked the last 3 or 4 seasons. You just can't keep coming out and saying it. Run defense, pretty bad this past season. Pass rush, pretty non-existent. He keeps saying we're top 5, top 6, in the league in sacks, but let's be real. We had 30, 40, 50% of those sacks came from DeMario Davis and Caden Ellis. So the defensive line, it just hasn't showed up. And then you have Cam Jordan, the Hall of Famer. Other than that, it really hasn't worked. Now, if you go through the draft board, the edge rushers this year are pretty damn good. You have Will Anderson at the top. Obviously, we won't be in position, for Will Anderson. You have Miles Murphy from Clemson. They have him, going top 10 all the way to 30th. So who knows what he's going to do. You have Nolan Smith, who rolls up draft boards, man. He's 6'3", 235. I'll talk about him a little later. You have Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech, Andre Carter from Army, Jared Verse from Florida State, Felix Anduke Uzama from Kansas State, Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame, BJ Ojolari, LSU, William McDonald, Iowa State. Those are probably guys that have a chance to go first round. Any one of those guys will probably be a good pick for the Saints. I haven't watched all of those guys, but I want to talk about Nolan Smith. 6'3", 235 pounds, man. Can play with, he's very, very physical, even though he's small. Now, according to PFF, I'm not a big PFF believer, but he had a 90.6 and an 81.4 grades against the run, last season at Georgia. Now, obviously, he had help, playing with Jalen Carter and some other, high caliber guys on that Georgia defense, but that's pretty good for a guy that's 6'3", 235, playing in the SEC. He is athletic as hell. Now, he doesn't fit the bill for the Saints. 6'3", 235, he's about 50 pounds light for the Saints' taste. But, man, a guy that can run 4.39 off the edge, has that bend, has the athleticism, the Saints need to consider it. I know it's not the prototype for us. I know it's not something we usually do. But, man, if that guy's there in the 20s and we want to, maybe move up to go get him from that 29th position, I would not be mad at it, as long as we don't have to obviously give up another first-round pick to do that. But if we can give up a third or a fourth, to move up 9 or 10 spots, whatever that may take, I would do that in a heartbeat. Like I said, we do need to get help on that defensive end position. We've missed. We swung and missed. It's just, it is what it is. We swung and missed at that position, and it's because we kind of took the same guys. Davenport, Peyton Turner, they're the same guys. They both were project guys. They both 6'4", 280, 285, and it just hasn't worked. It just hasn't worked, man. Big potential, but big bust. Like, let's be honest. So maybe we change the philosophy up, or you just keep trying until you figure it out. But I would definitely, hope the Saints take a very, very good look at Nolan Smith, man. Really, really like that player. But it's plenty of other guys. You just don't have to get, focused on Nolan Smith. Maybe you'll like somebody else in that draft. But defensive end, I think it's 40% chance we take one and like 40% chance we take a defensive tackle. And speaking of defensive tackles, let's look at them. Now we can look at some of these defensive tackle guys. Obviously, you can start off with Jalen Carter, who's fallen, off people draft boards. If he falls outside the top 15 by some miracle, Saints need to move up and go get him. Highly doubt that's going to happen, but that guy's a top 10 pick. After that, you have Mozzie Smith from Michigan, another really good defensive tackle. Haven't really watched too much on him, so won't really give my opinion. Kalaja Kancey, definitely did a video on him already. I would love if the Saints could pick him at 29. I think he's just moving up in draft boards just because he's just so good, so athletic. Then you have Brian Brees from Clemson, highly rated guy coming out of high school, produced at Clemson. Could be a really, really good guy for the Saints. Didn't really have that many sacks at the defensive tackle position, but, man, he has all the potential in the world to be a really good player. Then you have Siaki Ika, really big guy, about 6'4", 358. I think he'll be a second or third round pick. So with that first round pick, I don't think the Saints will do that. But the first couple guys I mentioned, also I would love to have any one of those guys with the Saints first pick. Defensive tackle, defensive end, that would be lovely with the Saints. In the second round, I think that's a wild card. You can take a receiver there. You can take another. If you don't take a defensive end, take a defensive tackle, and then vice versa. If you take a defensive tackle, take a defensive end. You can do anything with that. You can take a safety. You can do whatever you want. Like with that position, you can take a guard, you can take a tackle. You know, it's a lot of options with that pick. I think what the Saints may do is move back. And the Saints may move back in the draft because I think after we get a first round pick, if that's an edge rusher, I'm not going to say we have a need after that. Obviously, we can get better at some positions. You can get more depth on the offensive line. You can definitely get another receiver. You can get a linebacker. You can also just go back-to-back, defensive line picks. But I also don't think it's a big glaring hole with that second-round pick. So if the Saints were to actually drop back in that second round, it would not surprise me at all if they just try to get 2 more picks or maybe even get picks for next year. It wouldn't surprise me. It also wouldn't surprise me if they put that 29th and 40th pick and try to get in the top 15. It also wouldn't shock me from the Saints. We know they're aggressive because I really don't think it's a hole. After we got basically Jamal Williams, I was almost 100% running back in that second round, and I still think we do need to take a running back, just not with the second round pick. Now that we have Alvin Kamara and Jamal Williams, maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th round we can find a guy, but that second round pick is going to be the biggest question mark for the Saints. And for me, I think once that pick is either, traded to move up, traded to move back, or just selected there, that's when the real draft is going to start from the Saints. It's, what they decide to do with that 40th pick in the draft. Like I said, they can package that with the 29th to try to move up inside that top 20. They can go back, they can pick there, but that's when the real draft, for me at least, is going to start for the Saints. And I'm very, very interested to see what they do with that pick right there. But like I said, the rest of the picks, it's just up to the Saints. Our roster is pretty much filled out. We got 48 guys maybe to 50, 48 to 50 guys that's already going to be on the roster. The depth chart's basically filled right now. So with these draft picks, you're just hoping to get some guys that can, develop. Maybe you get some steals. Maybe get some guys that can make the roster. But for the most part, man, the Saints roster is filled. I'll go through the depth chart kind of right now to figure out, what the Saints have on the roster and see who's locked. Let's start with the offensive side of the ball. Derek Carr, Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, they're obviously locked. Alvin Kamara, Jamal Williams are locked. Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, Rashid Shaheed, Brian Evers, Juwan Johnson, Adam Troutman, Adam Prentice, Trevor Penning, James Hurst, all locks. Andres Pete lock, Kelvin Throckmorton lock, Eric McCoy lock, Cesar Ruiz, Ryan Ramchick, and Landon Young. I think all of those guys are locked. That's 20 players on the offensive side of the ball. And I was going to throw in Lewis Kidd in there. I just didn't because that could have been 21. He played a decent amount last year. So that's 20 locks on the offensive side of the ball. Then on the defensive side of the ball, Cam Jordan, that's going to be a lock. Peyton Turner, that's going to be a lock. Nathan Shepard, we just signed him. Obviously, that's a lock. Kalen Saunders, Malcolm Roach, Carl Grandison, Tano Passamwa, Pete Warner, Demario Davis, Zach Barnes going to be a lock. Paulson Adebo, Bradley Roby, Marcus May, Lonnie Johnson, J.T. Gray, Tyrann Mathieu, Marshawn Lattimore, Alontae Taylor. That puts you at about 40 guys just right there. Then obviously you got to count your special teams for Will Lutz, Blake Gilligan, and Zach Wood. That puts you at about 43. The active roster for game days is what, 46? Like I said, you got about 3 guys with a chance to be on that active roster. Obviously, to make the 53, you have more chance to do that. But to be active, it's going to be harder. And I think I left some guys out that have a really good chance to make this team. So we'll definitely see. We'll definitely see what's going to happen with this draft. A couple guys have a chance to be on active roster. That's the good thing about the Saints. Obviously, we didn't have a great season last year, but we have a really, really good roster, so we don't have to, depend on this draft to just hit every pick, even though it would be lovely to hit every pick. We don't have to hit every pick, and we can, draft maybe a developmental guy here or there. We just have basically a couple needs on that defensive line, but honestly, if we didn't even have a single draft pick, I would be confident in this team to be pretty decent next year. We have a pretty good offense, a damn good defense. It's going to be up to the coaching staff, to figure this thing out. The team is already much better than last year. We're solidified at the quarterback position, whether you like Derek Carr or not. He's an upgrade over what we had, in my opinion. Got Michael Thomas, who hopefully is going to be healthy. Brian Edwards, Olave Rashid is going to get better naturally. Got a good running back, too. So the team is already good without the draft even starting. That's definitely going to be, obviously, a big thing for the Saints. Now, up to the coaching staff to deliver. Defense, the jury's still out on if we got better or worse. I know we didn't really get worse. If we got better, jury's still out on that. I think Adebo, Alontae Taylor going to have to, Alontae Taylor keep doing what he was doing. Adebo's going to have a bounce back year. Tyrann Mathieu has to start the year. How he finished last year, Marcus may just need to stay healthy. Maybe Zach Bond could replace Cade Nellis. The jury's out on that. But, man, the Saints are in good position. Let me know what y'all think the Saints should do in the draft. My thing is, hey, move up in the draft. If you really, really like a guy, you really, really want a guy, be aggressive. If you have to trade that 40th pick, hey, fuck it and do it. Who cares at this point? 29, 40, try to move up if you think it's a guy that's falling that you really, really like. Hey, do it. Because like I say, the second round pick, it is important. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that second round pick is unimportant. I'm not saying it's unimportant at all because obviously we got Alontae Taylor in the second round last year. You can get a starting caliber player in that second round, obviously. But The Saints team is really, really good. We don't really have any holes. And if you're going to draft a guy in the second round that's probably not going to start, I wouldn't mind just getting a same type guy in that third round. And obviously the Saints have showed over the years that undrafted free agency, we might find a starter out there. That's how good the Saints have been. So it's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be interesting. It'll show me a lot about the Saints. Obviously, we're in win now mode. The Saints have shown they're in win now mode for the last couple of seasons now, and they move up in the draft. Wouldn't shock me again. We have a lot of big names like Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, Tyrann Mathieu, kind of getting up there. Alvin Kamara, he's not getting up there, but contract's running out. MT last year of his deal. So, I mean, it's a big year for the Saints. So if they really think it's a guy that can help them early in this draft to become contenders or help them become contenders, why not move up? So that's what I would do. I would be aggressive. If that's what you want to do, that's what the Saints have been preaching. That they're, aggressive in the draft. They're win now mode. They're going to always be in win now mode. Then I say move up in the draft. Like I was saying, let me know what y'all think in the comments below about what the Saints should do in this draft, man. As always, this is the Boo Tragedies, and I'm out.